Welcome to that third episode of Goodnight Princess Devlog, and today I've got some great news to share about the game concept. We've been working for 3 months around with Gabriel, and we've built a very cool prototype, but let's face it, let's be honest, the gameplay is a bit shitty. The combat phase is cool, but playing around with the prototype we've built, it was lacking objectives, we didn't really know what to do in the game, it was lacking, exploration, and that's actually why we started the discussion with Jeanne, is that we realized that a true gameplay takes time, and it's a complete, job. And Jeanne, talking with us, has pushed the concept, a great step forward. And that's what I wanted to show you today. So basically the game has 2 layers. First one is a narrative one, where you play as a father who tries to put a sleep to his daughter. And that's what you see on your screen right now. It's kind of an FPS mode where while the father is talking, and then you can make choices in the book of the father. So this is not in-game footage. It's more, target to render, as I like to call. We made it in Blender and try to see how the game should, feels in that narrative way. So that's the target, actually. When you play, the father reads the book that is writing at the time the father reads, and you play as a father who tells the story. The objective of the father is to put his daughter asleep. So the story has to be nice, and that's where I introduced to you the combat phase. So basically, every time in a story that you will have to fight against mobs and monsters, then you go into the combat phase. And the combat phase is where we've been spending most of our time right now, to be honest. Because if I have to be 100% transparent with you guys, building a story, a narrative, and all these parts is a bit tricky because we don't really know how to do it. You have to write, all the dialogues and everything in before. It takes a huge amount of time, and it's a bit risky because it's like writing a book, actually. So I've met someone who's starting to help us, but I will introduce you guys to that part a bit later on the devlog because we haven't made any progress really on that. We've been focused on the combat phase because we knew that the combat phase is the heart of the game. It's a shooting game, basically. So combat and shoot needed to be awesome. So basically, that's a prototype map we've built. It's taking place in a book, as you can see. And there is for now, it's a plain, but tomorrow it's gonna be a landscape with, hills and rocks and stuff around. But I want to show you, the details of, the basic aspect of the gameplay. So this is supposed to be a totem. What I call a totem is kind of, something magical you activate in the middle. And that totem is gonna give you a safe area in the fog. So the fog you are seeing right now, it's, I'll show you how I made it in Unreal. It's a very dangerous fog. Like if you in-engine play, you go into the fog and you can see on the bottom left corner that the fog is hurting you. It's not too bad right now, but if you go into the fog, you're gonna die. In the final version, you will be able to interact with the totem here. You still have the combat phase, and basically every time you kill a mob, you can see on the top left corner that it gives you coin, and these coins depends of the level of the mob you killed and the difficulty of the game. So the coins is a bit randomized, and that's the economy of the combat phase. These number of coins, they'll give you the opportunity to open chests in the game that are hidden in. So to open chests in the game that are hidden in the fog. So basically chests are gonna spawn in random places, and the fog is gonna disappear because when you pay the totem the amount of money it requires you can upgrade the totem, and the totem will give you a wider space for the fog. If I can show you that, I can show you what we've done. So we've got an actor called the Arena, and in the actor called the Arena, I cannot edit it like that, but you have like, you know, a radius, and this radius will expand, and while expanding, it's gonna push away the fog. How did we made that fog? Because fog is kind of complicated things, and there is a huge amount of fog right there. So instead of, you know, we use the volumetric fog basically. So basically how it works is you've got an actor called in Unreal exponential height fog. This actor is gonna bring fog to the place. See, if I increase the density of the fog here, it's gonna put, you know, a foggy atmosphere. But we don't want to have that. We don't want to have a full fog. We just want to have, you know, a very localized one. So you cannot put the density to 0, otherwise it's, you know, it makes even the volumetric fog here disappear. So what you do is you put it as the lowest part, so the overall fog is not visible in space. And after that, you take something called a volumetric fog in Unreal, and that's gonna activate a kind of shader that I show you here, which is volume shader with an additive blend mode. And that is actually shader you can put in any object, and that gives you, you know, a volumetric fog. So I want to show you how we've made it. Basically, I created a function because, as you can see in the material, I used that function twice, and I want to have the same result. So I created a material function, actually. And the function has two parts. Sorry, it's a bit messy there, but I will show you that. So first function, it's a vector going in y -1 in x. That's gonna give, you know, a direction. It's just to have a direction. So it looks like a color, but it's actually a vector, you know, x, y, and z. That vector, we downscale it a bit, multiply it by 0.1 to have something very slow, you know. I could have also put 0.1 here, but I found it was a cool opportunity to plug a parameter here. Why 0.1? If I put 1 here, you're gonna see that the fog is going very fast, so it's building the shader. I should not have done that while taking the video, but anyway. So basically, I'll continue that and show you after that. So that aims to put a very slow moving fog, and we multiply it by the time, so it moves actually. Based on that, we take a position, sample position, so it's a location actually. And that location, taking parameter of the material function, we multiply by a very, very, very small number. That's something to be related to the noise here. We had the result of, you know, that moving with the position downscaled a lot, and we had the two to have a position of a noise. So that's gonna, you know, generate kind of a noise picture and take a point in that picture. And that point, it's gonna give you, you know, a height map kind of, which is gonna be a, you know, a value between two ranges. We multiply it by 0.4. That's the, what I can say is the dissolve kind of parameter. Also, it's a good opportunity to put a parameter here. 0.4 is gonna give you, if you put 0 in that, you don't have any fog. If you put 1, you have a very dense fog with no hole in the fog. You see that the 1 parameter is giving very fast result. We don't want that. We want probably to have something more close to 0.1 was actually a good value. And if I put, I won't do it because basically I don't want to take you too much time on the building of the shader. If I put 1 here, instead of having, you know, that kind of texture with hole in the middle, because you see there is some holes, instead of having that, you have a very thick fog, which is kind of a wall, like, you know, dense smoke actually. So 0.5 is again a cool, I think it's a cool parameter because you can see through the fog, there is, you know, hole, but it's not, I mean, you won't be able to, if you go to that place, then you're completely lost actually in the fog. That's the thing. So that's for the part of so that's building the fog actually. And that part is actually what I call, what Unreal called the sphere mask. So basically the sphere mask is used to have that no fog in the place here. So there is two parameters in the sphere mask. There is the location and the radius. This is given as MPC. You know what I call MPC is the material parameter collection. So I build a collection of parameter. I put it here, the location and the radius. So two parameters here, location and radius. And I'll show you right after how I pass this value. And then I take this value, so for the location, I make sure that we have X, Y, and Z. It's why there is a mask here. And I use the sphere mask. So between the position we have and that location, using the radius passed in parameter, and the hardness is the distance between the cut. Like if I put a hardness of 1, then the difference in between no fog and a lot of fog will be, very visible. We're gonna see the sphere cutting the fog. Having a hardness of 500 makes it a bit more blend, So this is dense fog, this is no fog. So 500 is the value where you don't see pretty much exactly where is the sphere that cuts the mask the fog, but it's around there. So that's the hardness. You can play around with that. Having a bigger value here, we're gonna give you, a softer, a blend between huge fog and no fog. Reversing that, because if you don't do that, then you're gonna have fog in the middle and no outside. So using the reverse here and multiplying it to the noisy fog texture you have here, that's gonna be the output result. And that's actually taking the world position of the material, that gives you the extension directly. So that function is responsible of the extension. So what is the rest actually? What's the albedo? If you don't plug the albedo here, you'll see what happens. The fog is gonna be very flat. So it's a style, but we wanted to make it a bit more realistic. And since there is no shadow option in the fog, playing on the albedo, so albedo is more the color for volumetric things. You see, that's a very flat fog actually. It's black because we haven't put any value on the albedo. But if you put white, it's also the same. It's actually only the extension is going to be the alpha, if you allow me that expression, and the albedo is going to be the color. If you don't put any calculation on the albedo, then you're going to have a very flat fog, and it doesn't feel very realistic. So I've been looking around for a solution, and I found that one. Basically, we take the position of the light. So the light is going to be the light that's going to bright the scene. So we have an actor, a directional light. That's the position of the light. We normalize it and we multiply it with the distance of the shadow. So basically it's 0.5 here. We add that to the world position we have, and we pass that as a position to the function I showed you before. So that's position, from here. We pass that to the position at the extension function to get the extension based on that, and taking this into account, taking the light direction into account. We pass that in an exponential density and use 5 as the shadow density. So that's a value you can play with, around with. If you put a higher value, you're gonna have a more in-depth, shadow, but it fits tumor, it's gonna give weird result. Saturate is a way to clamp the value between 0 and 1. We inverse that value and we use different color. So you see that's a very bluish color, more gray one, and a more darker one. And that's the 3 color we're gonna use, to have something dark, something bluish, and something closer to the white, I would say. We are lerping this value using that alpha twice. And then here, we're gonna take the camera position, because the thing is, we don't want to draw the fog if the camera is too far from it. So we take a vector between the camera and the position you are calculating, and then the direction we divide by 5,000. So that's gonna be a rough value I put We clamp that value and we use that to lerp the value also on the result of the two previous lerp. And that's going to be the color part of it. I found some good articles and I put the articles in the description of the video because I don't want to make, tutorial. I just want to show you how we've made it. So basically, the good thing is having a material like that, you can play around with any form actually. What I've done is I put a block. So cool thing is the fog is actually a brick. It's a square. Like if I put another material, you're gonna see how it's made. So basically, if I take a material like a red material, you're gonna see that my fog is actually just a volume. It's a rectangle, and I can put as any object in Unreal. I can put the material I'd like. And if I put the fog, then I've got that nice ambience. It's actually a pretty cheap fog. It doesn't lag too much and it doesn't take many resources, so it's a good solution to have that. One thing I haven't talked to you about is the totem. So the totem has what I call an arena, and basically the arena is an invisible sphere. And that sphere, every time I change the radius of it, I created a function called refresh radius. What I do with that is I take the world location of the sphere, so basically the middle, and I put that as a location in the MPC, in the material parameter collection I told you. So the material is reading from a collection. As you can see here, the function is reading from a collection called MPC fog, actually, with, what I've shown you before, the radius, and that's the location of it. And then, so that's the two parameters here. And the totem is giving this value in the refresh radius. So every time you change the radius, it has a, radius parameter. Every time you change the radius, you call that function. It's going to put that to the MPC, to the collection. And then, so radius plus the location. And thanks to that, I can manipulate the fog and I can, make it vanish to some place. Expand the zone, etc., etc. How it works is basically you're gonna have an interactable object here, and every time you play, when you kill mobs, you earn money by killing these mobs. I will detail you how we calculate the money of each mobs in upcoming videos, because there is rules associated with the spawning of the monster, and we are still working on that. But I will show you that later on. So basically, every time you kill a mobs, and that's two mobs. Every time you kill mobs, it's gonna give you, coins, money, and stuff. That money, you can use that money in the game if you want to play with, the totem, and you can expand the arena by paying the totem, basically, and upgrading the totem. And this is gonna give you more space on the ground. You're gonna discover items that spawned in the fog at first. And then the aim of the game is to expand the arena enough so you can see the exit point. There is gonna be few exit points on the game, and this exit point will be something you can choose from, so you can exit to, maybe that's gonna be 1 point here, 1 point around here, 1 point around here, and 1 point around here. If you choose a point, then it will give you special abilities that are persistent. So basically, if you choose to the gate A, it's gonna give you 20% of health more, and it's persistent across run. So it means that if you always want to increase, your stamina or your health, then you choose always the same door. Or if you want to have a balanced character at the end, then you exit, you plan where you want to exit, and based on that, your character skills, capacities are evolving. So that's the roguelite part of Goodnight Princess. That's what we've been building on so far, and now we are rushing on that to have a true prototype working pretty soon, actually. I've also worked on procedural map generation, because we are wondering, either having a procedural map could be cool, because to be honest, if I have to synthesize the way I think right now about that, is if you want to have a very decent map, procedurally it's a bit difficult, because it's easy to generate, hills and rocks and maybe trees, but it's becoming quite hard to have, an interesting level design only by, doing procedural things. So if you take the time to, manufacture yourself the level, then you're gonna have a level that is well made, well thought, and then it's probably better in terms of gameplay. But the downside of that is that it's always the same level, and having a bit of a roguelite part in the game will also come nice with a procedural map generation. It will also give, more depth to the gameplay. So every time you play, it's gonna be a new map. You haven't seen that map before. And we are working on that. And I've been told that in Unreal there is some very cool actors to do it. Unreal has worked a lot on that. So if we took that way, I will make a true video of how we make it, actually. That's it, guys. That's what we've been working on so far. And we are planning to have a working prototype and making you guys play to the prototype if you are willing to. So stay tuned, because the Steam page is on its way. Talk to you soon. Thank you for sharing your feedbacks. Thank you for everything. Don't forget to subscribe on the channel. It's a cool way to support the channel, because we need you guys. We need to see if you guys are interested to play the game, maybe. And if you have any feedbacks on the way we build the game, then share it with us, because we are craving for your feedbacks, to be really honest. And I'll share you more news pretty soon. Oh, by the way, the music you're hearing from the beginning of that video has been made by Gabriel, and it's the official music of Goodnight Princess.